You're not afraid of failure, but you're actually afraid of being truly seen. And I know that when imposter syndrome hits you hard, then the feeling of, I'm just not enough, or qualified, or experienced yet to do this, damn, it runs your life and controls you to make wonky decisions and therefore manifest a wonky reality. And today, we're done with that, and we're gonna make sure that we do things in a way where you're truly certain, confident, and truly have conviction in yourself. So let's get started. So one of the interesting things about fear of being seen is that you may think the idea originated with you, but the idea originated from an experience that you have to being seen. Now, for my one personally, it was that back when I was 6 years old and we just came to Australia as a family because family's financial situation changed. So my parents basically entered survival mode, and I understand it. So this survival mode then added pressure to our family. So then there was more pressure for me to be the perfect Asian daughter at the time. And the definition of a perfect Asian daughter meant that, she did some extracurriculars on top of school activities. So I was sent to dance school when I was 6 years old in Australia, but unfortunately, my relationship to that dancing school was not really good because I was always shy. I couldn't speak English when I first came to Australia, so I was always this version of me who couldn't socialize and communicate, and I didn't understand how to get along with other girls at the dance school. So that painted the identity of a weirdo who just couldn't speak and doesn't understand social skills at the time. And even though I wanted to quit really badly, not because the teacher or the society itself was bad, but it's just my relationship to it wasn't good from the start. I was told like a successful person doesn't quit easily. So I had to go to that dance school for 8 years pretty much. And because I was always scared of the teacher because she would berate me and yell at me for not smiling, for not dancing attractively enough, for not putting enough strength in my arms, and for being expressionless because I'm just scared, like always scared in her presence and just scared of performing and stuff. That would then magnify the fear within me of being seen. So for 8 years straight, I was put in the back row for every single performance. And I remember that there was only one time where I truly felt like I was like shining, when I had like 10 seconds or maybe 30 seconds of a song to be in the middle in the front row for the entire 8 years. So as much as you try to undo this, but as a kid, like you don't understand subconscious programming. So if you're out of environment, right? If you're out of environment, especially at 6 years old, and the teacher was older than my mum, so she had a lot of authority in my life. She was an authority figure. And when enough times she says like, Patty, you gotta smile, and yells at you and makes you feel scared. Like even if you think you're good as an adult, it doesn't heal easily. Because there's a difference between your conscious and your subconscious. The conscious mind, as you grow up, says that I'm good. But I don't know why I fear public speaking. I don't fear it, but let's just say you fear public speaking, or you fear of expressing yourself authentically to the world, and people are just like tuning their attention to listen to you. On the conscious mind, you're like, I should be good. There's nothing bad about this. Public speaking is not scary. And you might even like tell yourself, but maybe I'm just shy. But subconsciously, what you really felt was that you were punished for existing. I don't know, this goes really deep because I felt punished for just existing at the dance school. As a young child who every week, like, it's just repeatedly like, Patty, just back row. So eventually, I always danced in the back row during practice. And then when it came to performing, it's always like, Patty, that back corner over there where every single performance, like nobody could see me. So that built an inner identity within me that I don't deserve to be seen. And especially that when I was younger than that, I was always put in the front row because I was confident in Thailand. But as soon as I came to Sydney and I became a different person who couldn't speak English and was put in ESL class, and then, just adults telling me that you don't deserve to be in the front row pretty much by their actions. You then have a subconscious association of being seen with scary, with feeling small, with feeling like imposter syndrome. So honestly, I couldn't figure out for many years why, even though I'm a confident public speaker, I am pretty disciplined at what I do. I show up properly to everything that I do for years, and I can host workshops really well, always get positive feedback. But why do I have an income ceiling? Why can't I earn significant money from any of this? So I couldn't understand for a long time when I compete in Toastmasters, right? So I'd compete in table topics, evaluation, international speech contest, and also the other one, humorous. Basically, the purpose of me competing at the time was so that I could compete internationally for international speech contests. I really wanted to, I was so traumatized by my resume situation that even though I got more skilled and qualified from doing interview coaching, but why is it that the more I leveled up internally, the more it was harder for me to get a job? So then if I go for entry jobs, they would say, but you seem overqualified for entry position. And if I try to go for a more senior position, they would say, but you need to then gain junior experience in this particular company to climb the ladder. Otherwise, you're too inexperienced. So you'll have too much experience and then you're also inexperienced. I didn't understand what was happening. So when I desperately needed some income and I couldn't get the income because no matter what interviews I went to, it's like my values just didn't align to any companies. It was trauma for me. So then I went really hard with Toastmasters because I felt like public speaking was my lane. Like I'm pretty good at it. And I thought that I thought that as long as I just win the international speech contest or I compete internationally, then I could then make my resume more credible and I could become a paid speaker. So that was my logical egoic self telling me that this is how I'm going to be seen. So then when I really did compete, no matter if I did practice 100+ times tediously on one speech, a year before the actual contest, and I would do fortnightly speeches to the point where I would do free flow every fortnight, and I did a lot of speaking in person, I just lost to somebody's speech that was more basic. I mean, she's good as a person, but I thought her speech was basic. And I was like, what's going on? Why is the world treating me like this? I spent a whole year training myself to be qualified to speak at that level. And then I came second at area level. I don't know. At that time, I didn't understand that it was all energetic. It was not a skill problem. It was an identity problem. And more than anything, it was a subconscious problem. You can execute the perfect speech. You can execute the perfect workshop. You can become the star of your company. You can be the star employee, getting your sales numbers up the roof. But then when it comes a time where you finally want to get promoted and get paid more, when finally there comes a time where you feel like you did everything that you could in your human power to be a qualified paid speaker, to get to the level where you feel that it matches your potential, when there comes a time where you even make YouTube videos or content and you feel like my content, it should have blown up by now, which was for 2 years, my old YouTube channel, where I eventually just stagnated at 3K subs and made 400 overall or something for the lifetime YouTube channel, no matter how hard I went at it. I asked myself, what's going on? And the problem is that you subconsciously feel inferior to the world. Enough times of reality, literally reflecting back your inner state, where you feel inferior to the world. No matter what you do on the outside, whether you pay a coach to improve the way you speak, whether you try to improve your mindset and read so many books and do everything that you can to get paid more, to be seen, to be congratulated, as long as your subconscious is, as long as you feel inferior as a muscle memory, all the way to when you were 6 or 7 years old and you couldn't recall what happened, but it's the prompter is still running in your background. That's why no matter what you do, there's a fear of being seen, that like, but what if they know that I'm not it? Like, what if they saw all the failures I went through and they knew that I wasn't that qualified? I had these monologues play and I'm going to show you what it means. So, the person who fears of being seen operates in a very logical way, because that was pretty much me for my entire life. Until recently, I just realized too, like, it's not about what you do on the physical plane only. It's about your subconscious association to being seen. And for me, it was just like the trauma was way embedded, way too deep, that if you feel scared of looking at it, you're going to perpetually operate in the lower eye, where your identity is fragile, you're finite, and you're constantly inferior to the things that you want. Basically, as somebody who feels inferior to the world, what happens is that they would start to make impulsive logical decisions. So for me, even though I was like, I'm not scared of being seen, but the decisions that you make are wonky. And this wonky decision, it may be things like, I'm going to go for a job promotion, so I'm going to directly ask for it. But then for some reason, the 3D slaps you with a disappointment. So what happens is that the 3D reality, it slaps you with a no. So you had your hopes up high, and then it shuts you down with a no. So then what happens is that once a 3D reality, which is a reflection of your past feelings of rejection in the past, slaps you with a no when you go for a job promotion, because you don't understand that you're operating as your finite self who has her own subconscious blocks towards being seen, you then start to like take a dip with your self-esteem. So now you're following the 3D reality, you're reacting to it. Once the 3D said no, you then literally respond back with disappointed, it's not fair, pissed, rejected. And guess what the inner monologue says when you feel this way? The inner monologue that replays in your mind is, I knew it, they wouldn't choose me. It's sad because I wish that more people don't have to go through this, because it has nothing to do with how qualified or skilled you are, but it has everything to do with your relationship to receiving. See, the thing is, now that you feel this way, you've pretty much entered the vibrational prison, where now you've boxed yourself in the vibration of fear, of shame, of embarrassment, of feeling like guilt as well, and even resentment towards the world, and even desire to be more, but you just can't seem to like overcome that like wall, that invisible wall that you can't see. But then you use willpower to go at it again. So you try again. You try again to make the decision, but no matter how hard you try, this is how the journey kind of looks for you. Like it goes up and down, and then you kind of just plateau. Because what happens is that the 3D reality, it keeps following you around like this. So it gives you a bit of false hope, then it swings you back down, and then you guys meet here again, which is a plateau. Whether that is plateau in sales, plateau in views, plateau in outreach, plateau in engagements, plateau in your job, plateau in your income. Like, it looks logical that maybe the plateau is because my marketing is off, because my thumbnail is not correct, because my copy is not correct, because my strategy is not correct. That may be a percentage, a part of the reason. But the main reason why it's happening is because there's this prison, vibrational prison that you've locked yourself in. And it's got to do with the fear that, what if they really see the real me who's unworthy? Will they really see me who's constantly fell asleep feeling shameful about my past, that why couldn't I just surpass this level and break through this level? So therefore, for every single dip that you take, there is an inner monologue that says, I told you that you can't do it. I knew that you can't. I just knew that you couldn't. I knew it would be a no. And then you'd say things to yourself like, again, it's happening again. And so what happens is that there's this thing happening in your reality, right? So it's really interesting because basically what happens is that first you observe the experience, and the experience says it's a no. It's a no. And then what happens is that you don't let the no go. You internalize the no and assign meaning to it. So then now you're saying to yourself that, like, this no must mean something about me. So you now internalize. And by internalizing, you emit a certain frequency of self-rejection. So now you're rejecting yourself too, because you internalize a no to mean something about you rather than just assigning as a neutral event. So then what happens after that is that then you start to then feel let down and you feel discouraged. And basically your conviction level goes down the drain. So you have no conviction anymore in the reality you're living in. And then once you feel that enough times, because as within, so without, so the universe is mental and whatever goes on within is reflected without. And Neville Goddard even says that life is man's consciousness objectified. So if your consciousness says, I'm rejected, and you've predominantly imprisoned yourself in the feeling of rejected. So then the world comes back and gives you more no's. And then you observe more no's, and then you internalize it, and then you feel self-rejection, and then you dwell in feeling let down, discouragement as your muscle memory. And then that then becomes your energy that you emit out to the universe. So you emit out rejection, 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 for then to then mirror back in your reality. So it becomes a loop. Or it becomes a cycle. And that's why people go to therapy, to break these cycles. But the thing is, the more you talk about it, from the frequency of self-rejection and let down, I don't know, it's really good to unpack things with other people. But like, I've tried that kind of stuff. And then the more you talk about it in a way where the frequency doesn't dissolve, the more you kind of then see yourself as the person who seeks a therapist to get help. So it depends like what works for you. But basically, we then start to seek outer solutions to this. So we might get coaching on how to speak better. We might study how to articulate our thoughts and speak better. We might try to get therapy to ask them, how do we, like, what's going on inside of us? But all it really takes is you as the vehicle, right? So we don't assign external power to things like, speaking coach and that kind of stuff. I mean, yes, it helps, but it only helps when you come from a place where, as this version of you, instead of you doing anything, trying to get out of fixes, where you're still in lower I and you're still finite, you basically become the version of you who chooses to take the elevator up, the consciousness elevator up, to instead make sure that your decision, your habit, your thought, your emotion, your belief, your self-talk, your perception, your expectation, your attention, your focus is absolutely congruent with the version of you who is in the end state. But that end state is that you don't have a fear of being seen. There is no fear around you asking for a promotion and getting shut down. There's no fear with you putting out content and feeling like nobody gives a crap about what you have to say just because the views don't reflect your results yet. This version of you doesn't do anything as this lower version, but basically she makes sure, or he makes sure, that your decisions are incremental. So you take it easy. And when I say your decisions are incremental, what you then do, instead of you making like exponential leaps, like I'm going to go for a job promotion. No, what you do is you mentally decide at first that you have that job promotion. That incremental step that you may take may be a 10 minutes of subconscious rewiring, whether it's through meditation or priming your mind to receive. Before any job promotions or the virality or the acceptance happens on the physical plane, this version of you who's elevated has decided, I'm not going to go about this in a blind way where I feel like a loser and I feel like an imposter, but I'm going to walk to see my manager and ask for a promotion. No. You're going to sit with yourself and decide mentally to build inner conviction within you that you already have that job promotion, or you already received the virality, or you've already received the client working with you and people acknowledging you. That happens all in the inner world first. So in the outer reality, nothing shows. So the 3D is still giving you wonkiness right here, but you don't get affected. So then, because you prime your mind, what then happens is that you start to feel some, like a tick of confidence in yourself. So instead of approaching the job promotion right away, what you're also going to do is you're going to mentally organize this, like rearrange and organize the meeting ahead of time. So what happens is that when you ask for a job promotion, they might ask for data, your past performance, and your evidence, right? So show me the metrics that you've produced, show me what you've done the last 6 months. The person you just asked for a promotion goes and asks for it. But when it comes to, what are your data? What are your results? They start to like feel less conviction towards it. But this person's like, no, before I even take physical action to ask for it, I'm going to prepare my data well. And I'm going to rehearse the conversation, how it goes in my mind that, look, if they ask me for my results, this is how I'm going to present it. If they give me any objection, this is how I'm going to answer to the objection. So then this also happens for things like discovery calls. If somebody starts to throw an objection, you've mentally decided how you're going to respond to it in the best way. But if you don't prepare mentally ahead of time, once somebody throws you a rejection or an objection, then you start to panic. So again, nothing happens in the 3D yet. This person is just priming her mind. But every day, as the mind is priming, your confidence now starts to go up. So then, from this place where the confidence now is starting to go up, what you then also do here is that you go and do something that nourishes your life. You nourish your life before you do anything by either working out, by engaging in activities that you enjoy, so that you lift your vibration to courage at least, so that you're good either way. So when we feel like our life is deeply satiating to a level, if we get the outcome, we'd feel like amazing. But if we get rejected, literally our response is going to be, it's okay. So this person then goes and asks for a job promotion, or they put themselves out there, right? And do you see the 3D is not merging? So the 3D is not merging, and they may take a bit of a dip. But this dip, when they start to get this dip, their inner monologue says something like, it's okay. Why? Because along the journey of them gathering data, gathering evidence, doing mental rehearsals, meditating, putting themselves in the right state, and elevating their vibration to emanate at least a courage level 200 on Dr. David R. Hawkins' map of consciousness chart. And they start to build this muscle memory of feeling neutrality and acceptance to what is. They start to feel detached. So then let's just say they get a no, exactly the same way as this person does. Their internal monologue is completely different. So then their self-talk and their emotions and their thought, the feedback loop is completely different. So then they go at it again, right? They got it again, and you're like, no, it's okay. Then I'll just go at it. I'll just continue gathering my data. So I'll just collect data. And because they have a lot of good energy, they have a lot of courage and acceptance, they start to perform well after that. So after they get rejected from the promotion the first time, they might go back and be like, nah, it's okay. Let me just focus on creating more better results. So they go on and outperform themselves. Or they create better content. And they pretty much 10x themselves after the rejection, instead of dwelling in like, yeah, but I told you that you couldn't do it. So now their confidence starts to skyrocket. So now it's like everything they've done has compounded the right way. So internally, that's the end state. And because of these, a bunch of correct inner actions that are taken. So never got out to say success is gained not by imitating the outer actions of the successful, but it's by having the right inner action and inner talking. This person then literally compound their conviction or confidence. So then when they go and ask for a promotion, at this point here, they try again, right? The 3D has no choice but to eventually merge with them. So they get a yes. Because they're not focused solely on what the outer reality is saying to them, but they're coming back to understand that there was a subconscious block. I accept it for what it is. It was a no today, but it doesn't mean that I have to reject myself from the no. When they get a no, they don't be like the world is unfair. I mean, they can, but then after that, they come back and say, how can I 10x myself after this? If I don't go viral this year or next year, well, how do I still build myself up to be prepared to receive it, kind of thing. But it's interesting because if your block is deeper than that, then this is the way that we're going to undo the block and make sure that when your subconscious associates you with receiving the promotion, overcoming imposter syndrome, getting yourself into the door in the career path that you want, getting the contents to pretty much get the right kind of engagement and have people recognize your work. This is how we're going to do it. So stay tuned. So one of the phrases I remembered when I was watching this like chicken date, and Jennie from Blackpink was on it. And so she was saying something along the lines of, back then Faith used to disappoint me, but I'm learning to become friends with Faith again. And then the comment was like, wow, that is, that's queen kind of thing, because faith in yourself is something that once you become best friends with it, then life works for you. See, the thing that happens is that when we feel shut down, disappointed, rejected, unseen, and unchosen, basically we become enemies with faith, and therefore enemies with universe. But it's interesting because the universe is pretty much you. The universe is your world. So basically, when you dwell enough time in feeling shut down, disappointed, rejected, unseen, and unchosen, you become an enemy against yourself. So you are now enemies with yourself on a subconscious level. So the thing is, once you become enemies with yourself, how do you expect the world to cherish you with love? When most likely, if you're operating again imprisoned in fear, in anger, in pride, in desire, in over-ambition, and eventually in guilt, and then apathy. You cannot expect yourself who has vibration lock yourself up to be of resonance with things that will shower you with feeling loved, with feeling chosen, with feeling respected, with feeling cherished. So again, it's interesting because we tend to want things from our outer reality when we don't really have anything that is of match to that reality. So when we go and purchase things, right? Let's just say you want a Chanel handbag. The Chanel boy handbag costs $7,000. I don't know what the price is today, but back then it was $7,000. In order for you to physically hold and own the Chanel handbag, you need to prepare $7,000 to transact for it. And I believe that when it comes to the universe, it's kind of similar to when, let's just say, an apple here cost $4, maybe less. But everything has a price tag, right? If you want to buy it. And the requirement for you to own that thing is for you to prepare the money to transact for it. So then how is that different from you going out to the world and you're saying the job promotion or acceptance from like career acceptance or getting sponsored for your brand and having people work for you and getting accepted into certain jobs and have people say yes to you? How is that different than you knowing that in order for me to carry this Chanel designer bag firsthand and own it, I have to prepare $7,000 physical dollars? How is that different than you saying that I want to now permanently have love enter my world, have being chosen enter my world, have being respected enter my world, have being cherished and supported by people around me enter my world? How is that different than you then having to literally carry the vibration that matches that? So if you want love from the world, then you have to embody love from within. Kind of like if you want to buy that Mac laptop, then you kind of need to prepare, I don't know, like a few grand, $1,000 or $2,000 to transact for it. So even though I'm not saying that you're going to transact the vibration, but it's give and take, right? Like you can't expect to go to a Chanel store and only hold $5 and expect that they're going to give you the Chanel bag because the price tag is $7,000, not $5. So then it's the same thing here. Like if you expect that your world predominantly be a yes, then how could you expect that to come if what you have to exchange for it is a vibrational prison of the lower rungs of Dr. David R. Hawkins' consciousness chart, which is desire to finally achieve the things outside of you to make you feel seen, desire and over ambition to like achieve big goals, but then every single time you try to get that contract, that deal to work out, that person to sponsor your work, that investor to put in some investment in your business, that boss to finally approve your promotion, it's like the bigger the desire is, the more importance you put on that desire. So you create like this massive 10,000 step distance with over ambition because you put so much energetic importance on that outer reality. So then once you start to like, you know, things not go your way, you then start to drown in guilt and apathy, and then you start to have pride. How are these emotions supposed to be congruent and in harmony with the things that you want? So just like you knowing the price tag of each items that you're going to transact, you need to carry the same energetic signals that will then tune with the reality that you want. It's really similar, isn't it? So therefore, what we then must learn to do is forgive. And it's interesting because I was watching this podcast by this very reputable Thai singer. His name is Yeah. And basically, he was so famous back when I was a kid, but then because of his fame, he got into addictions to parties and just overspending, and I think drugs as well, and alcohol, and he became alcoholic for a bit and it destroyed his life. So eventually he got into 20 million baht debt, and then his daughter, who is now a prominent singer as well, she had to kind of pay it off. So basically he was saying that he was filled with self-hatred, and he said he really wanted to let go of this bad karma. So he tried to pray for all the exes that was involved in his life, to just, ask for forgiveness through prayers and apologize to everyone he mistreated. But then on this podcast, he then said, what I didn't realize was that the biggest person that I owe this apology and forgiveness to was my past self. So he said, like, I needed to, like, ให้กำลังใจตัวเอง and like ให้อภัยตัวเอง which means forgiving his past self. So I understand that, yes, it's good to forgive the people that did you dirty and people that did you wrong. That helps. But more than anything, you have to forgive the version of you who didn't know better. Because your fear of being seen, it's got to do with this funny relationship that you have with your old self, where you just want to shove her down and hide her away from the world, which I've been doing for a long time. So the thing is, what happened was that I used to get rejected a lot by, in high school, not just by boys, but just by life in general. So then I tried to reinvent myself in my 20s, and I would looks max and confidence max and improve the way I spoke and socialized more and go out more and change the way that I dress and diet. So initially I would get dates, and there'll be so many people attracted to me because of the way that I present myself to the world. But because I didn't completely forgive, like, this vulnerable version of me. And this vulnerable version, she felt embarrassed for her true self, that I should be more successful than this by now at 20, which I used to feel back then, and I wasn't. So then I would shove this version of me down. So this is kind of like bringing out your shadow self in a way, and having harmony with your shadow self. This version of me who was vulnerable all the way to when I was, like, really, really young, like, she wanted to be heard. So instead of us, like, reinventing ourselves and being like, I hate my old self, I never want anything to my old self, I get it. But your old self was you. And if you don't have some compassion for your old self, how are you going to become friends with Faith again? Because your old self was you, and she deserves to, like, be acknowledged. So therefore, when we severely hate our old self because your old self didn't know better, you're not having gentle acceptance. And again, in the book Reality Transurfing, the author stated about the apple, where the more you hate apple and you energetically, like, feel frustrated by the presence of apples in your life. So even though physically you're just saying, I don't want anything to do with apples and I'm just going to ignore it, but if energetically you feel frustrated towards the apple, you still feel some shame and ick towards the apple, and it affects you and bothers you that the apple is there, then you're energetically saying, apples, please still come into me, like, please come into my existence. So if you hate your old self so much, you're not gently accepting what used to happen, which means that you don't accept every version of you. And then if you're not accepting every part of you as you are, as the imperfect human that you've always been, how are people going to accept every version of you? And that's why people only accept the pretentious version of you. That's why this version of you, she's like, I'm scared. Because even Patty herself doesn't even approve of me. I don't even approve of my old me. Because Patty feels so shameful for me, like, having messy hair days and gaining weight, that she has to constantly go and work out and go looks max and confidence max to be someone new, and she's leaving me aside. because she hates me. That's what I realized in the end that was happening. And because the world is as within, so without, if you hate this old self so much, how do you think people will treat the real you? When it comes to you now seeking things you truly want, and it requires you to be authentic. That's why people feel the ick towards, like, something about you just feels a bit off. It's because you have a facade. You have a facade, and there's a pretentious part of you that needs to, like, you know, speak a certain way and have a certain kind of personality to be charming to others to get what you want. And you're being like, you're perfecting your shell. But as long as you don't have some sort of compassion for the version of you who can't keep up, for the version of you who will eventually break by being pretentious for too long, by being inauthentic for too long, eventually this shadow side of you is going to catch up, and it's going to block every opportunities through self-sabotage. And that's where self-sabotage comes in, is that you're scared of this version of you. So then this version of you is scared of you too, because like you're scared that she's going to come and, like, you're scared that people will see through me. I'm scared that you will see through me. Not anymore, but back then, that I'm just a little girl who didn't know how to navigate life. I was just a little girl who didn't understand social dynamics. I was just a little girl who couldn't speak English. What else can I do at 6 years old? I couldn't speak it. Didn't understand how to get along with people. I was just a little girl who had culture shock, who went through trauma, who endured a lot of social pressure and family pressure. Like, what can I do to be better? If you don't accept that version of her, like, people aren't going to accept the real version of you. So then you always have to perpetually pretend to be someone that you're not to get what you want. But then the more you pretend, the more you self-abandon. And the more you self-abandon, that's why people come in as mirrors to then abandon you. And I'm not talking about just jobs, like even in love life and friendships, people are just mirrors of your inner state. So that's why when we practice the art of forgiving ourselves, we then come back and learn to become best friends with faith again. Because basically, once your old self, your shadow self or your old self, and your like desired self, which is this is the self that you present to the world, and this is the version of you who you try to suppress, like a shadow part of you, and this is like you, like your presentable self. Once you guys start to merge, because every single time you have a conflict or, you know, like some sort of like, I was embarrassed at that time where I was shy and awkward and people were rejecting me, and you start to like have some inner harmony and a conflict resolution with your shadow self. Just the way like when you have conflict resolution with a friend and you're like, oh, it feels so relieving, we're good again. That's like you being your own best friend and being like, I'm good again. Everything's good again. So again, instead of this version of you having to fight against the world, now it's like both of you are uniting as one, right? You're uniting as one. And you're saying that no matter who rejects us, I'm not ever going to reject you again. And guess how this version of you who says this to you, guess how she will show up in the world now when both of these versions of you unite. And you're like, I don't care who's going to break your heart and who's going to reject you. I will never break your heart again. Whew. Guess how this version of you is going to now, like, how much power she's going to have when she like goes into any relationship dynamic, and she's like, he can like, well, no guy really screws you up. Yes, their actions may be douchey, but it's the way that you interpret everyone's action towards you. Or like when that boss doesn't give you the job that you want again, and when you lose the contest again and you're like, no matter who tells me that I don't deserve to win this again, and no matter who underpays me again, and no matter who disrespects me again, we have our own back. Both you and your shadow, we have each other, and I will never treat you that way again. Guess how fast your reality is going to reflect that? The minute that you mentally put that into the universe, right? Guess how high you're going to emit now? You know, from courage to even say that like no matter what, right? No matter what. And then you start to go into like willingness or neutrality. You start to go to acceptance. And then you shoot through the roof. You go to love. And you go to at peace. Now you're fully at peace with yourself. So therefore, you're more at peace with the outcomes of life because you know that you are your most special person. So therefore, nobody can make you feel unseen anymore because you see yourself fully. So once nobody can make you feel, even if objectively they still reject you, but you don't feel unseen because you have each other's back, the world has to reflect. And that's when people will be like, there's just something about her that feels anchored. She feels so secure. She is like, she's organized herself well. She conquers herself well. There's some sort of emotion. In Thai culture, like in podcasts, like Thai people always like, จัดการกับตัวเอง well, like, which means that they organize their emotions well. It's that. And when people sense that you're just secure and you're anchored and you're grounded, and you're just okay, and you're detached, naturally, they just want to vote for you. Naturally, they're just like, I want to give her the promotion. I don't know why, but I feel like I can trust her to do the job. I trust her to hold this. I trust her that she can perform. I trust I can train her. Some reason, I just want to keep watching her video because there's just something about her consistency. Like, I feel like I can believe her. I believe what she's saying. I feel like she knows what she's talking about. I just want to sponsor this person because even in Shark Tank, there was this lady that was selling like some sort of cat, like helping protect cats from like a cat DNA test kit or something like that. And she was making the highest return of investment because, not because the idea was like number one in the investor's view, but she was just so persistent. She really believed that even if the investors or anyone rejects her outcome, she's going to collect all the data from the cat testing kit to make this testing kit where like, yeah, it can help kill the cat instead of, you know, the investor was like, oh, I'm just going to like, I can just go buy another cat for $5 instead of like getting this test kit or something like that. But she was like, nah, I'm going down this route. I have conviction in what I'm doing. So therefore, because she unites and every part of like her inner self is like, her self-belief is through the roof. That's why it got other people to invest in her, and she was making a crap ton of money back from that. So because of that, it's like there's something about your inner conviction that makes you magnetic to opportunities. And it is just something about like the way you emit your charisma, the way you talk, the way you receive information, the way you listen, that people just feel inspired now to shower you with what you already emanate, which is a sense of security, which is courage, which is now neutrality towards the external outcome because you're internally secure within, which is the willingness to look at your shadow and just overcome that fear again of her like having to feel embarrassed again, and the acceptance of what is that, like, you know what, if you don't accept me, I accept myself, and that is enough. So therefore, like, they feel this love that you have towards yourself, and therefore the love you have towards people around you, and they feel this sense of peace that, like, yeah, I want that sense of like the feeling of being around her too, the peaceful feeling, the love feeling. And that's how you become truly seen in any environments, even digitally through online or in person, when people finally acknowledge you and they see every part of you and they're okay with every part of you because you're okay with every part of you. So anyway, this is it. That was an emotional video, but if you would like coaching on this, then I empower high-achieving women to reach their tipping points in 8 to 12 weeks by shattering the inner world ceiling. So not a direct coaching about shadow work or anything, but pretty much to help you achieve your goals by working on this as part of the journey to get what you want. So if that sounds like you, don't forget to keep in touch and see you soon.